Welcome to another Onshape video tutorial at Bryanston School for the skateboard project. In this video we are going to start doing some assemblies. So we have created our skateboard files, and now we're going to put some of those skateboard files together into a couple of sub-assemblies, and then we'll bring them all together to make a completed skateboard assembly, including importing in a pre-modeled set of trucks. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the file that we've been working on. So we've got Onshape loaded up, we've logged in, and we've gone into our files. So you can see at the bottom of the screen the different part studios that we've been working on. So we've created the deck, the fasteners, and in the last set of tutorials we created the wheel components, and that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to put together a wheel. We're going to put in a couple of bearings, a spacer and a wheel to create a wheel sub-assembly. We're going to leave the nut off because we're going to add that on when we put it to the trucks. So we're going to go over to assembly 1. By default, all of the Onshape documents have an assembly that's blank and ready for us to put components in, so we're going to use that one. So we're going to assembly 1, and I'm just going to right click and rename it. So I'm going to call that wheel assembly. So just type that in and hit enter so we know what's going to go into this particular document. So to add components into this, I need to use insert, and I've got a choice of using the document that I'm in, using other documents, and I also have an opportunity to use part studios or assemblies. Now we've not created any assemblies in our current document, so we're going to have to use one of the part studios. So we're going to go to the wheel parts, and if I just click on the arrow I can open that up and see the different parts. So I don't want to bring all of the parts in. We're going to start off with the wheel, so we'll bring the wheel in, and if I move it around I can place it anywhere on the screen, but if I don't move it around, if I just click on the tick, the wheel will appear in the assembly in the same position that it would in the part studio that you drew it in. So you can see it's offset from the origin. So I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to bring in the bearing, and I'm going to bring in the spacer as well. So go insert, open up the wheel parts, and I'm going to bring in the bearing, and I actually want two bearings. So the first bearing and the second bearing, so I'm just left clicking on those to place them, and I also want the spacer. So now the spacer we actually modelled in the middle, so I'm going to leave that so it stays where it was in the origin, and just left click without placing it anywhere. Okay, so the next thing to do is to start putting this together. Now the way Onshape works is we have little mating points, little fasten points. And there are various different types, but all of what we're going to do on this one is just to use a fixed mating point, because we're not worried about parts spinning around with each other. If this was an assembly, all the parts would sort of spin around together. So I'm going to use a fasten mate, and I'm going to hover over the end of the spacer, and you see it picks up a little point at the end on that end face. I can also hover over that face. Now when I click, I'm not going to select the edge that's highlighted in orange. I'm going to select the mate connector that's highlighted. So I'm going to left click to select that. I'm just going to spin this around, and I'm going to do the same for the center on that face of the wheel. So left click there, and you'll see that the spacer goes in, and I can left click on the tick to put it in place. Now you can see that the spacer is bigger than the hole in the middle of the wheel. In reality this would just be flopping around, but when we put the bearing in, when that goes through the axle, that would hold it in place. So this spacer is designed just to make sure that the bearings don't get too close together. It can just give them a little bit of clearance on here. Okay, so let's put the first bearing in. So again, we'll pick up the outside edge of the spacer, so it picks up the mate connector in the middle. left click to select that. I'm just going to spin it around, and I'm going to do the same on the edge of this face of the bearing, and left click. And you can see that it's moved the spacer out. That doesn't matter. Left click, and now you can see that everything's adjusted to suit that particular point. And again, we're going to just repeat that again. So left click on the edge of the bearing to pick up that make connector. Didn't select it because it's not appeared up there. So let's just do that again. Left click to select that one, and then do the same on this one. Left click. And you'll see the space has moved. That's fine. It just previews with the part it's mating to. Left click, and everything moves again. It doesn't matter in this instance that that's moved around within the assembly, because we're not going to be using that to line up with other things. So that doesn't matter. If we were, then we would have fixed one of the components at the start. I'll show you that in a different video. So there is the wheel sub-assembly created. Very short video this time. If it was a bit quick for you, just go back and watch it through again, perhaps before assembling the wheel. And I'll see you in the next video where we learn how to import a public part or assembly, and then we will add the wheels and the nuts onto that to create another sub-assembly. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.